You've heard that losing your head is human, that everyone has limits, that reacting when provoked is understandable. Bullshit. That's nothing but a cheap excuse keeping you hostage. The truth nobody wants to tell you? When you lose control after being provoked, you're not being authentic or human. You're being a predictable idiot. And worse, you're handing over your power on a silver platter to whoever manipulates you. Musashi didn't win 60 duels because he reacted to every provocation. He won because he understood that the warrior who loses composure has already lost the fight before even drawing his sword. This video isn't about controlling anger. It's about you finally realizing you're dancing to someone else's tune, thinking you're being spontaneous. Enough. Let's start with what's actually happening in your brain when someone pushes your buttons. And no, it's not about passion or standing up for yourself. It's way more pathetic than that. Your amygdala, that primitive little chunk of brain tissue, gets triggered. It's the same mechanism that made your ancestors run from tigers, except there's no tiger. There's just someone who said something you didn't like, and your body reacts as if you're about to be eaten alive. Heart rate spikes. Cortisol floods your system. Rational thought shuts down. You become, for all practical purposes, dumber. Here's what kills me about this whole thing. People walk around thinking their reactions are justified because they felt something strongly, as if the intensity of an emotion proves its validity. That's like saying a panic attack during a flight proves the plane is actually crashing. Your feelings aren't facts, they're just chemical reactions, and chemicals can be triggered by the dumbest stimuli imaginable. The worst part? You've been conditioned. Every time you reacted in the past and got some kind of payoff, even a negative one like attention or the illusion of winning an argument, your brain logged that pattern. Now, it's automatic. Someone says X, you do Y, like a lab rat pressing a lever. You think you're expressing yourself. You're actually just running someone else's program. Zen Buddhism talks about this as being trapped in samsara, the cycle of reactive existence. You're not living. You're bouncing from stimulus to response, like a pinball. The machine tilts, you react. Someone bumps the table. You react. You have no center, no still point. You're just a collection of triggers waiting to be pulled. And manipulators know this. They study you. They see what makes you twitch. Maybe it's your insecurity about your intelligence, so they subtly question your competence. Maybe it's your need to be seen as moral, so they accuse you of hypocrisy. They're not interested in truth or actual dialogue. They're interested in making you dance. And you do. Every single time. The Japanese concept of ma refers to the space between things, the pause, the gap. When you react instantly, there's no ma. There's no space between the provocation and your response. You've collapsed the gap that would allow for choice, for strategy, for actual power. You've become a stimulus response machine, predictable, controllable, weak. Think about the last time you lost it with someone. Play it back in slow motion. What were the physical sensations before the explosion? Tightness in the chest? Heat rising? That was your warning system. Your body was literally telling you, we're about to do something stupid. And you ignored it, or worse, you interpreted it as a sign that you should react, that your anger was righteous. There's nothing righteous about being a puppet. And that's what you are when someone else can reliably produce a specific behavior in you by saying or doing specific things. They own you. They might as well have a remote control with buttons labeled anger, defensiveness, shame. Press, react. Press, react. The trap isn't the provocation itself. The trap is believing that your reaction is somehow you being real or standing your ground. That's the lie that keeps you enslaved. Real strength isn't reactive, it's responsive. There's a universe of difference between those two words, and most people never figure it out. This one's going to sting. That moment when you couldn't hold back anymore and finally said what you really felt, that wasn't authentic. That was you at your most fake, most programmed, most completely not yourself. Authenticity has become this garbage concept that people use to justify any impulse that passes through their nervous system. I'm just being honest. I'm just being real. No, you're just being lazy. You're outsourcing your behavior to whatever emotional weather pattern happens to be passing through at the moment. Musashi wrote in the Book of 5 Rings about the importance of no design, no conception. He wasn't talking about being impulsive. He was talking about acting from a place so trained, so refined, that there's no gap between perception and right action. That's not the same as blurting out whatever you feel. That's disciplined spontaneity. Your outbursts? That's just chaos wearing a mask of authenticity. Here's what's actually happening when you lose control. You're not accessing some deeper truth about yourself. You're regressing to your most primitive, least developed self. The part that never grew up. The part that throws tantrums because it's the only strategy it knows. Calling that authentic is like calling a baby's crying communication. Technically true, but come on. The Stoics understood this better than most modern psychologists. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about expressing his feelings. He wrote about not being jerked around by them. He understood that his reactions weren't him, they were things happening to him. Weather patterns in consciousness. You don't identify with the weather, you watch it pass. But our culture has sold everyone this idea that repression is bad and expression is good. So, people think that every impulse needs to be honored, every feeling needs to be voiced, every reaction needs to be validated. It's exhausting, and it's made everyone weaker. You know what's actually authentic? The version of you that exists when you're not being emotionally hijacked. The you that can observe a provocation, feel the impulse to react and choose something else. That's agency. That's actual selfhood. The reactive you is just biology doing its thing. There's nothing special or authentic about it. Think about people you actually respect, the ones with real presence and power. Do they fly off the handle? Do they get baited into stupid arguments? No. They have what the Japanese call hara center. They move from a still point. When they speak, it lands because it's chosen, not compelled. That's what you're missing when you react. The illusion runs deeper, though. You've probably built an identity around your reactivity. I'm passionate. I don't take crap from anyone. I speak my mind. These are just cope mechanisms. Ways of reframing your lack of self-control as a personality trait. It's not a trait, it's a bug, and until you see it as such, you'll never fix it. There's a Zen koan about a master who was insulted by a student. The student waited for the explosion. The master just smiled and continued with his tea. Later, the student asked why he didn't react. The master said, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The student suddenly understood. You don't have to accept every provocation. You don't have to take delivery of other people's garbage. But you do, because you think refusing to react means you're being fake, swallowing your truth, betraying yourself. The opposite is true. Every time you react predictably, you're betraying the person you could be for the person your conditioning made you. That's not authenticity. That's slavery with extra steps. Now, we get to the part that should really piss you off. The people who provoke you, they're not doing it by accident. They've mapped your nervous system like it's a subway route. They know exactly which station to hit to get you going. Manipulation isn't some dark art practiced by sociopaths in movies. It's basic pattern recognition. Every human does it to some degree, but some people have made it a sport. And you're the game. Here's how it works. They test you. Small provocations at first. They watch what gets a micro-reaction. Maybe your jaw tightens, maybe your eyes flash, maybe you respond just a bit too quickly or defensively. That's data. They file it away. Over time, they build a complete profile of your trigger architecture. Sun Tzu said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." The problem is, they know you better than you know yourself. You're walking around thinking you're complex and mysterious. To them, you're a vending machine. Insert provocation A, receive reaction B. It's that simple. The really sophisticated ones use what's called chain manipulation. They don't go for the big trigger right away. They stack smaller ones. They get you slightly annoyed, then slightly more annoyed, then they hit you with the big one when your defenses are already compromised. By the time you explode, you've been set up so perfectly that you look like the crazy one. And maybe you are. They also know about ego hooks, the things you're secretly insecure about. Your intelligence, your morality, your competence, your attractiveness. Whatever it is, they've noticed you overcompensate for it. So, they poke it. Not directly at first, just adjacent to it. They create doubt. And doubt in an insecure ego is like blood in shark-infested water. You thrash around trying to prove yourself, and the thrashing is exactly what they wanted. There's a concept in Japanese martial arts called sen no sen, taking the initiative by responding to the enemy's initiative. The manipulator shows intent to attack, and you counter before they complete it. Except in manipulation, the attack is designed to make you counter. Your counter is the actual objective. They fake left, you bite, they've already won. I've watched this play out 1,000 times. Someone gets baited into an argument they didn't need to have. They win the argument, feel righteous, walk away thinking they stood up for themselves. Meanwhile, they just spent 2 hours of their life, elevated their cortisol, damaged a relationship, and gave the manipulator exactly what they wanted: attention, engagement, proof that they can control you. The manipulator doesn't care about the content of the argument. They care about the fact that they made you argue. They pressed a button and you performed. That's the victory. That's the game. And here's the really sick part. Once they know they can trigger you, they can do it in front of others. They can make you look unstable, aggressive, irrational, all while they stay calm and collected. I don't know why they're so upset. I just asked a simple question. Meanwhile, that simple question was engineered with laser precision to detonate your specific insecurity. You end up being your own worst enemy. They don't destroy you. You destroy yourself while they watch. They just provide the spark. You provide the explosion. And everyone watching thinks you're the problem. Musashi talks about observing the enemy's rhythm and breaking it. But you can't break their rhythm when you're dancing to it. You can't counter manipulation you don't see coming. And you can't see it coming when you're convinced your reactions are spontaneous and justified. The only way out is to become unreadable. Not by hiding or suppressing, but by being so centered that there's nothing to hook into. No obvious insecurities, no predictable patterns, just presence. Just response without reactivity. That's when you become dangerous to manipulators. Because they can't play a game where you won't follow the rules. By the way, if you want to go deeper and turn discipline into a way of life, check out the KMA method. It's a concise, practical guide designed to sharpen your mind, strengthen your will, and build unbreakable consistency in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Let's talk about what this is actually costing you. Not in some abstract spiritual sense. In concrete, measurable ways that are destroying your life while you justify it as being human. First, there's the cognitive cost. Every time you lose control, you're reinforcing neural pathways. Your brain is literally getting better at losing control. It's like practicing a bad golf swing. Repetition doesn't make perfect. It makes permanent. You're training yourself to be reactive, and the more you do it, the hair trigger you become. What used to take a major provocation now happens over nothing. Then there's opportunity cost. Think about the goals you have, the person you want to become, the life you want to build. Every explosion, every reactive episode, every time you get baited into stupid drama, is time and energy not going toward those things. You're spending your life force on defensive reactions instead of offensive creation. You're in a constant state of putting out fires instead of building something. Your relationships are corroding. And I'm not talking about the obvious ones with the people you explode at. I'm talking about everyone else who witnesses it. They're making calculations about you. Can I trust this person with something important? Can I rely on them under pressure? Will they embarrass me in front of clients/colleagues/family? The answer they're arriving at is no. You're being quietly written off as too volatile to fully invest in. There's a Japanese concept called shibumi, understated elegance and effortless effectiveness. It's the opposite of reactive drama. People with shibumi get more opportunities because others trust their stability. You're losing opportunities you don't even know exist because people are routing around you like you're a landmine. The health cost is real too. Every reactive episode is a cortisol dump. Your cardiovascular system takes a hit. Your immune function drops. Your sleep quality degrades. You're literally aging faster and dying younger because you can't let things go. The samurai understood that a warrior who cannot control himself will have a short life. Not just in battle, in general. Then there's the reputational compounding. Every reactive incident becomes a story people tell about you. Remember when they completely lost it over that small thing? These stories spread. They become your brand. And unlike a good reputation, which takes years to build, a reputation for being reactive can be established in a single incident and reinforced with every subsequent one. You also lose the ability to be taken seriously when it actually matters. It's the boy who cried wolf, except you're the wolf and the cry. When you react to everything, your reactions mean nothing. The one time you actually need to put your foot down to draw a real line, nobody cares because you've drawn 100 fake lines before. There's a strategic cost that's even more insidious. When you're reactive, you can't play long games. You're always fighting the battle in front of you, never winning the war. Musashi spent years preparing for duels. He studied his opponents. He chose the time, the place, the conditions. He controlled everything controllable. You're just swinging wildly at whatever provokes you in the moment. That's not strategy. That's flailing. Your decision-making degrades too. When you're in a reactive state, you're not in your prefrontal cortex where good decisions happen. You're in your limbic system where survival decisions happen. That's fine if you're actually in danger, but you're not. You're just in an uncomfortable conversation, and you're making decisions with the part of your brain designed for life or death scenarios. Those decisions are usually terrible. The compounding effect is what kills you, though. Each reactive incident makes the next one more likely. Each loss of control lowers the threshold for the next one. You spiral down into a version of yourself that's constantly defensive, constantly agitated, constantly ready to blow. And from inside that state, you can't even see how far you've fallen because it happened gradually, one reaction at a time. People talk about dying with your boots on, going out fighting. That's romanticized nonsense. The real tragedy is living with your dukes up, fighting imaginary threats, burning yourself out over provocations that don't matter. That's not warrior spirit, that's exhaustion wearing a tough guy mask. Now we get to the solution. And it's not what you think. It's not about developing better coping strategies or anger management techniques. That's just putting a nicer leash on a dog. We're talking about becoming unleashable. Mushin literally translates to no mind or empty mind. It's a state where you're fully present but not attached to any particular thought, emotion, or outcome. It sounds mystical, it's not. It's the most practical thing you could possibly develop. When Musashi wrote about Mushin, he was describing the state where a samurai could respond to an attack before consciously thinking about it. Not because of blind instinct, but because of training so deep that the right response emerges without ego interference. No fear, no hesitation, no thought, just perfect action. For you, right now, this means developing a space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl wrote about this as the key to human freedom. Someone can do something to you, and before you react, there's a gap. In that gap lives your power, your agency, your actual self. But here's where everyone gets it wrong. They try to create that gap through suppression. Don't react, don't react, don't react. That's just white-knuckling it. That's not Mushin, that's repression. And it builds pressure until you explode worse than before. Real Mushin comes from understanding that thoughts and emotions are weather. They arise, they exist, they pass. You don't have to do anything with them. Some angry thought shows up. Fine, let it exist. Watch it, don't feed it, don't fight it, don't identify with it. It's just mental weather. It has no power unless you give it power by acting on it. This is what meditation actually trains. Not some blissed-out state of perpetual calm, but the ability to observe your own mental processes without being controlled by them. You see the anger arise, you feel the urge to react, and you can choose not to. Not because you're suppressing it, but because you see clearly that acting on it serves no purpose. The Zen archer doesn't aim and then shoot. They become the arrow reaching the target. There's no separation between intent and action, but that comes from emptying out everything that isn't essential. All the ego, the fear, the need to prove something. When you're empty of that garbage, what remains is pure effectiveness. For modern application, this means you need to train observing provocations without automatically engaging. Someone insults you. Instead of immediately defending, you pause. You observe the insult as information about them, not about you. You notice your body's urge to react. You let that urge exist without acting on it. It peaks, then it fades, and you respond, if you respond at all, from a place of choice rather than compulsion. This isn't passive. People confuse Mushin with being a doormat. It's the opposite. A person in Mushin is more dangerous than a reactive person because they can't be predicted or controlled. They might do nothing. They might do everything. You can't bait them into a specific response because they're not running on programmed reactions. The training is simple but not easy. You start small. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of cursing or gesturing, you observe the anger that arises. You breathe. You let it be there without acting on it. That's one rep. Someone makes a snarky comment. You feel the urge to snap back. You observe it. You choose silence or a neutral response. That's another rep. Over time, the gap between stimulus and response widens. Things that used to trigger you instantly now barely register. Not because you've become numb, but because you've become free. You're not at the mercy of your conditioning anymore. The paradox is that the less you react, the more impact you have when you do choose to act. People who fly off the handle constantly are ignored. People who are normally centered but draw a line in rare circumstances are taken very seriously. Your restraint gives your occasional intensity real weight. Mushin also means you stop carrying yesterday's provocations into today. Reactive people hold grudges. They replay insults. They plan revenge. They're prisoners of the past. Someone with Mushin lets each moment be fresh. What happened 5 minutes ago has no hold over this moment unless you give it hold. This is why masters in any field look effortless. They're not forcing anything. They're not reacting to everything. They're empty enough that the right response just appears. It looks like magic to people who are trapped in reactivity. Theory is useless without practice. So here's how you actually implement this. Not someday, today, right now. First, you need to accept that you're starting from zero. Everything you thought you knew about handling provocations was probably wrong. The way you've been doing it has gotten you here, to a place where you needed to watch this video. Time to admit the old strategy failed and build new circuitry. Morning practice is non-negotiable. Before you engage with the world, you need to establish your center. This doesn't mean an hour of meditation, though that helps. This means 5 minutes of conscious breathing and observing your mind. Sit, breathe. Watch thoughts arise and pass without engaging them. This trains the observer in you, the part that isn't reactive. Then you set an intention for the day, not a goal like, I won't get angry. That's suppression framing. Instead, something like, I will observe my reactions with curiosity, or I will create space before responding. You're training a new pattern, not fighting an old one. Throughout the day, you need trigger awareness. This means identifying situations that historically make you reactive. Certain people, certain topics, certain types of comments. Once you know your triggers, you can prepare. Not by avoiding them, but by approaching them with the explicit awareness that you're entering a training zone. When the provocation comes, and it will, you have a protocol. Physical first. Notice where you feel it in your body. Chest tight, jaw clenched, heat rising. Don't judge it, just notice it. This brings you out of pure reaction and into observation mode. You've created that crucial gap. Then, count 3 breaths before any response. This seems simple. It's revolution. 3 full breaths gives your prefrontal cortex time to come back online. It interrupts the automatic pattern. During those breaths, you're not deciding what to say. You're just breathing and observing. The right response or non-response will emerge. Here's a critical distinction. You're not trying to be calm. Calm might happen, but it's not the goal. The goal is conscious choice. You can choose to respond intensely, but you're choosing it rather than being hijacked into it. That's the difference between reaction and response. You need a review practice, too. Evening reflection. What triggered you today? How did you handle it? No self-judgment, just honest assessment. Did you create space or react automatically? If you reacted, what was the early warning sign you missed? This builds pattern recognition. The physical component matters more than people realize. The samurai trained their bodies not just for combat skill, but for nervous system regulation. You need something similar, whether it's martial arts, running, lifting, yoga, whatever. Something that teaches your body to experience intensity without freaking out. This translates directly to emotional intensity. Find people who embody what you're building. Not motivational speakers or self-help gurus. Actual people in your life who don't get rattled. Watch them. How do they handle provocations? What's their energy like? You're not copying them, but you're studying what centered looks like in action. You also need to eliminate or reduce exposure to rage culture. If you're consuming content that celebrates reactive behavior, righteous anger, owning people in arguments, you're programming yourself for failure. That stuff is poison. It normalizes reactivity and makes you think it's virtuous. It's not. It's weak. Expect setbacks. You will react badly sometimes. You will lose your cool. When it happens, you don't spiral into shame or give up. You treat it like a martial artist treats getting hit during sparring. Information. What worked? What didn't? How do you adjust? The long game is about identity shift. You're not trying to control your reactions. You're becoming someone who doesn't need to, because you're not reactive by nature anymore. This takes time, months, years, but every day you practice, you're building new neural architecture. One more thing, you need to know when to actually engage. Mushin doesn't mean never fighting. It means fighting consciously, strategically, when it serves a purpose. There are rare times when a strong response is warranted. But if you're reactive all the time, you've lost the ability to distinguish between those times and everything else. By becoming non-reactive by default, your rare, intense responses carry real weight. This isn't self-improvement. This is self-reconstruction. You're dismantling who you've been and building who you're capable of becoming. Someone who can't be baited, can't be manipulated, can't be controlled through provocation. That person is more dangerous, more effective, and more free than you can currently imagine. The path is simple. Not easy, but simple. Daily practice. Continuous awareness. Honest assessment. Patience with the process. And the absolute refusal to justify reactive behavior as anything other than what it is, a failure of self-mastery. Start now. Not after you finish this video, right now. Take 3 conscious breaths. Observe your mind. Notice what you're feeling without acting on it. That's the first rep. Do it 10,000 more times and you'll be someone completely different. Someone who can't be provoked because there's nothing to hook into, just presence, choice, and power. That's the way of the warrior. Everything else is just noise. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. Most people will watch this, nod along, maybe feel inspired for 20 minutes, and then go right back to being emotional puppets. They'll get triggered tomorrow by the same garbage that triggered them yesterday, and they'll justify it with the same tired excuses. I'm only human. They crossed a line. I had to say something. Fine, stay mediocre. But if you're serious, if you actually want to break free from this pathetic cycle of stimulus response that's been running your life, then understand this. Every single provocation you face from now on is a gift. It's a chance to prove to yourself that you're not who you used to be. The old you reacted. The new you observes, chooses, and acts with intention. That gap between what happens to you and how you respond, that's where your entire life is determined. Musashi knew it. The Stoics knew it. Now you know it. The only question left is whether you'll actually do something about it. Or if you'll just keep being a slave to whatever random person decides to push your buttons today, your move.